Back here at home, negotiators are racing to raise the debt ceiling and avoid a catastrophic default. President Biden left the G7 dinner in Japan early to get an update from his team on this, and he's directed them to continue pressing for a bipartisan agreement. Let's bring in ABC's Elizabeth Schulze at the White House and ABC's Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill with more on that. Jay, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says they're making progress, but they aren't there yet. What's the latest on the negotiations?
Yeah, we just got breaking news on that exact front, Diane. So there are negotiations ongoing right now today here in the Capitol with proxies for President Biden and proxies for Speaker McCarthy. And the primary Republican proxy in that room is a representative from Louisiana named Garrett Graves. And he just walked out of that room where the negotiations are going on. And he said, he told reporters in the hallway there, including our Gabe Ferris, that the talks are, quote, paused, and said what the White House is asking for in these negotiations right now is, quote, unreasonable. So not a good sign for the current status of these talks right now on Friday going into this weekend. It's unclear if these talks will continue right now into the weekend. We don't know the answer to that. What we do know is that Representative Graves just walked into Speaker McCarthy's office right now. Speaker McCarthy, by all accounts, is not here at the Capitol, but his staff is. So a sign that talks, as Representative Graves puts it, are paused as we go into this weekend, and we are very much in crunch time.
Elizabeth, what kind of a reaction do you expect from the White House on this, and how is President Biden managing these negotiations while overseas?
Well, this definitely goes against what the White House has been saying about the progress of the talks, which they said there have been steady progress over the past 24 hours. We know that the president left that G7 dinner early to get an update on how these negotiations were going. And he also had a separate call late last night, Diane, in which the White House said that there was progress on a lot of key agreements to get to a bipartisan deal on the budget. Though in that same readout, the White House did say that the president emphasized the need to continue protecting essential programs for Americans. This is a nod to one of the really big sticking points over those new work requirements for some federal aid programs. That is something that we understand there has not been an agreement on, at least up until this point publicly. So potentially that could be a setback as far as what sides, where they can really find this common ground on the budget talks. And really, it's hard to understate just how much the clock is ticking. Hard to overstate, Diane, how much the clock is ticking here. The president is expected to give an update publicly in a press conference on Sunday morning from Japan, just to talk about how much progress has been made. But if the talks aren't going on as have been hoped and portrayed through the weekend, that would obviously have some serious updates there. Diane.
Jay, McCarthy says they need a deal before the end of the weekend in order to push it through Congress in time. So what does that mean, particularly now with these talks paused?
Right. The initial hurdle is getting a deal in the first place, Diane, as we've been talking about. But even if they can get to a deal by Monday, that deal still has to pass the House of Representatives and the Senate. And we're on the clock with the legislative timeline here because the X date is in early June by all accounts. And there's limited legislative time where both the House and Senate are in between now and June. I'll give you an example. It's Friday. Both the House and Senate are off today, and the House is back next week, but the Senate is in recess. They're standing ready to be called back in an emergency format to come back and vote on something debt ceiling-wise. But by all accounts, they're off next week, the Senate. So that's why McCarthy said earlier that he needs a deal by the end of this week, potentially by Monday, in order to get it through the House of Representatives and then give it the time it needs to get through the Senate to, in theory, pass in both chambers and be signed by the president. But that's also assuming that Kevin McCarthy doesn't have any resistance within his own party from further right Republicans to pass any kind of a debt ceiling deal and doesn't have to go to Democrats to get those votes, which could make situation even longer because of the need for McCarthy to have to whip votes both in his party and on the other side of the aisle. So we are very much not near the goal line right now.
Still a ways to go. Elizabeth Schulze, Jay O'Brien, thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.